I know so many of you guys are out there working hard every day, and in many places, in many circumstances, you don't have enough help around you. The loads that you are pulling right now are just way too strong. Well, this is interesting because in Pennsylvania and a number of other states, they are looking at making staffing mandates through legislation that says, hey, for healthcare workers, there needs to be so many people working per patient, so on and so forth. And that sounds great. I'm not sure if the government is the one that needs to be doing this. However, if it helps the process, let's do it. We're going to be talking about staffing mandates and things you can do to make your job more tolerable right in this episode.
Welcome to the Licensed to Live show, where professionals, doctors, champions, VIPs, attorneys, and those in public office discover strategies that help you restart and gain what is lost when you find yourself accused. If another has doubted your integrity, questioned your credentials, or caused your actions to come under scrutiny, you are in the right place. On the other hand, if you have never felt the knot in the pit of your stomach when legal papers are served, the heartbreak of disappointing your family when the lock clicks shut on handcuffs, or had to appear before a board of review, then be aware, the longer you serve, the more likely you are to find yourself under the microscope of those who judge. Prepare yourself for this uncomfortable possibility. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jarrett Patton.
Welcome to episode 163 of Licensed to Live. My name is Dr. Jarrett Patton, and I'm your host for our journey together today and every day you choose to listen to this show. If you or anyone you know is being dissed in their career, please invite them to join us along this journey. Just go to any podcast player and hit subscribe. While you're there, please rate this episode and give me honest feedback so I make sure that I'm bringing you the most up-to-date information about career challenges and life changes. Yeah, and today we're going to be talking about staffing. It brought back several memories of days when I needed different staffing on my job, and there are just so many things that we can learn from other places that are doing it right. But the question is legislation the key? So we will get started talking about staffing mandates, what kind of things go on in your workplace right after we finish thanking our sponsors.
Something smells good. EH3 coffee. EH3 coffee. Premium organic. Nothing better than waking up. EH3 in your cup. Premium organic. EH3 coffee. Nothing better than in the middle of your day. EH3 coffee. Premium organic. EH3 coffee.
Hey, this is Dr. Jarrett Patton. Do you need more positivity in your life? No matter what part of your life you want to transform, positive affirmations can help you achieve your goals. But sometimes making permanent changes can be difficult. Designed with you in mind, Licensed to Live. Daily affirmations to rebuild your life will inspire and equip you to become the best version of yourself. Licensed to Live. Daily affirmations to rebuild your life will set you on the path to changing your mindset, beliefs, speech, and ultimately your actions. You can change your life now by getting your copy at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your finer book retails, or licensedtolive.com. That's licensedtolive.com.
Hey guys, this is Janae Noonan, and I'm here with Dr. Jarrett on Licensed to Live. Hit the subscribe, follow the journey, let's go.
Remember, Licensed to Live, the conference, is coming virtual. July 14th, 15th, 16th. Get your ticket now before they're sold out. licensedtolive.com. Yeah, I mean, thinking about staffing, I'm thinking about some of those days of the giant stories. You guys know the old school practices that probably just don't pan out anymore because things have changed. But I do remember one particular night as a pediatric resident on call. Staffing in our residency program was very thin because at Bellevue and NYU, we had to staff 2 hospitals, 2 intensive care units, 2 emergency rooms, so on and so forth, all the way down the board. And so we were stretched thin all the time. And I remember one particular night, I wasn't feeling the best. I had a GI bug earlier. My symptoms have stopped, but I was terribly weak because I was so dehydrated. Hey, but it was my turn to cover the Bellevue ICU overnight, and there was nobody available who could cover the shift. So back in the days of the Giants, well, you know what people did. They just did what they had to do. So I hopped on that F train from Brooklyn, coming into Lower Manhattan, coming in to the program, and they looked at me at sign out and they knew I wasn't doing very good. And I said, I'll be all right. I'm not throwing up anymore. I'm, not having diarrhea anymore. I'm just very dehydrated. I'll sit here and drink Gatorade during my shift and I'll be okay. But if one of you guys really wants to help me, maybe you can take me back in the treatment room, pop in an IV and squeeze in a bag of fluids. And well, back in those days, I don't know what you residents are out there doing now, but that's exactly what happened. We were able to find a little room. The leaving shift stayed an extra hour, so a couple of bags of fluid could get squeezed into me, and they're ready to let me just start walking around with an IV pole. And I said, well, I started to do that, but I said, this is just ridiculous if I'm the doctor and I'm walking around with IV poles while these kids around here in the ICU have on IV poles. It made no sense to me, but that's when it ended up happening. I ended up getting the IV out and finishing my shift, and I was doing just fine. And luckily, it wasn't a busy night, and there was the appropriate amount of staffing, and it was okay. I remember even where staffing worked to my advantage. Another night, it was an overnight shift. They had 2 senior residents assigned. There was a senior resident, and then there was a junior resident that was supposed to be on call, but the way staffing worked out, there were a couple senior residents on. And so the assigned senior resident said to me, hey, things are very slow around here. There's not much going on. Hey, why don't you just go home and get some rest early? So I hop on that F train about midnight, headed back out to Brooklyn, get back to my apartment. I'm like, things are great. I'm going to start my post-work unwinding routine, and not to get into that some other time with you guys, but I was just in the middle of that routine, about to finish up when my pager goes off. And, when my pager had been going off, I just called in and said, hey, look, I'm not covering tonight, page the other pager. But this call was from the senior resident left behind in the hospital. Yeah, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And she said to me, Jarrett, I'm sorry. I know you probably just made it back out to Brooklyn and you're kicking back, probably about to get some sleep now, but we need to accept a transfer from Kings County Hospital, and we don't have anybody to do transport because now we have very lean staffing, and the extra body that you provided would have been the one on the transport. So, I'm going to need you to come back in and we'll get you over to Kings County and do this transport. So luckily, I hadn't, done anything that would have taken me out, like had a couple of drinks or anything that would have made me not safe to come back to work. So I just hop back on the train, get back downtown, and then hop in this ambulance that takes me over back to Brooklyn, a different part of Brooklyn, Kings County, pick up the patient. And off we go, and I'm in the hospital for the rest of the night. But the key to these stories is that, staffing can work out to your advantage sometimes when people have the right amount of work to do. And staffing often can work to your disadvantage when there are not enough people to take care of the work that is there. When administrators look at staffing, they're looking, especially senior administrators, they're looking at spreadsheets, they're looking at numbers, they're looking at known metrics that can go by. And obviously, they want to keep the staffing as lean as possible because, well, people and employees tend to be the biggest expense on a hospital's payroll. That's easy to understand. So people may have wards that may only have a couple of nurses, or they may only have a doc to cover this many patients, or maybe the residents are, taking care of the whole house. And, there may be very few attendings in-house or even available for consult. And each hospital system runs each of their programs a little bit differently. So there's some staffing ideas that are here and there, and some places are better than others at this, which brings to the point a recent article that came across my desk talking about a bill in Pennsylvania, House Bill 106, that people are looking at to approve staffing measures for nurses. And they've proposed this through legislation that all hospitals in Pennsylvania would have to follow this minimum. Now, obviously, with government mandates, there certainly can be some problems. Sometimes there's not enough government people that understand healthcare to really get the right information. But what they are proposing does make sense on some level, even though it may not make sense for everybody. And this is, the keys are in the details before some legislation like this may come through. But there's something else, that makes a lot of sense that you guys should be thinking about. So here's what they say in this bill. They want one nurse for each patient giving birth. So in the OB ward, if you have 10 women up there that are about to give birth, they need to be 10 nurses, I guess, for each of these patients. I mean, that's probably good because, well, you need a nurse in the room when they're pushing, but all that time before the actual giving birth, well, I don't know. So how does that really work? Not for me to figure out. I'm just telling you what this bill says. It also goes on to say there's at least one nurse for every 2 patients in intensive care. That also makes sense because, well, yeah, people have very intensive needs in intensive care. I mean, it's a bunch of monitors, bunch of labs, lots of stuff going on with these patients. So you probably want to just have some nurses that are there because let's look at doctor staffing. We know that doctor staffing is far below these numbers. There may only be one doctor per ward, regardless of the amount of patients that are there. So again, we need to think about how this may work to expand it for everyone. They go on to say at least one nurse for every 3 patients in intermediate care and at least one nurse for every 5 patients in a rehab unit. So they are putting specific measures in place. Now, I didn't dig in to see how this was based, what kind of input and testimony they took on this bill, but this is kind of the final bill that's coming through. And obviously this is to fix a problem, knowing that, well, there's usually not enough nursing staff on wards to safely take care of patients in many cases because people are looking at their budgets and trying to cut expenses. But I thought this was interesting because there are just a few places that may not have good outcomes out there because they don't have enough nursing staff. They also have shortages. They may not have enough medical staff there. So this is interesting, and I'll keep you guys posted on what ends up ultimately happening with this legislature. Will it pass? Will it not pass? And then the fun part is always with what the unintended consequences are. In fact, I was just on a call the other day with Pennsylvania Senator Judy Schwenk talking about some unintended consequences of some water and sewer legislation that came up several years ago that largely seemed to be benefiting the utility companies and not the individuals. So, hey, this is the legislation. We'll see what actually happens in practice and what are these unintended consequences. But hey, laws take a long time to get into place and to be enforced and all of that. When we come back from this break, I will give you some tips on things you can do to make your workplace more bearable with staffing and things you can do to bring to your administration right after we finish thanking our sponsor.
The time is now to refresh your career. We help doctors, lawyers, executives, and VIPs refresh and restart. Dr. Jarrett's coaching helps you build confidence, gain more credibility, develop more leadership skills, and gain clarity in your career path. Want to climb the executive ladder or branch out on your own? We'll put your career in overdrive. Visit drjarrett.com and sign up for your free strategy session.
Now, we've been running this particular commercial on the show for quite some time, and I'm serious. Hey, hit me up if you want a strategy session. I've had some great strategy sessions just the other day and have some great discussions and get people on their way. So if you want a strategy session, sign up for one now. If you want to see the television commercial, because this is just the audio for a made-for-TV commercial that was airing on several networks around Pennsylvania and the Philadelphia region. I know it was on CNBC. It was on CNN, Headline News. It was on multiple networks, but check it out on my YouTube channel. Just go to Dr. Jarrett, spell out the word doctor, J-A-2-R-E-1-T, and you can see the actual commercial. It's also up on my Facebook page, on the Jarrett Patton page. So the real question is, are staffing mandates the answer? The answer to this question is, I don't know. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. We will have to see. As far as I'm concerned, each institution probably needs to fix the things that are right. And if staffing doesn't seem to be appropriate for your workplace, let's take a look at things that should happen. Well, if you are in management, middle management, upper management, and even if you're on the front lines, when you're looking at staffing issues, you must talk with the people on the front line. These are the day-to-day nurses, the day-to-day doctors, the people that are there every day. They are going to have information that will be critical into understanding what the solution to the problem is. They will help you further define the problem. So don't take this on all by yourself and show up pulling some magic numbers out of a hat. Abracadabra. Hashtag abracadabra. No, we want you to have input from people first and just kind of see where do things stand, what is the current state, and what are some of the things. And the frontline individuals will be there. Now, of course, hey, if it's going to make your job easy, you might want to, err on the side of adding more people. So it may not end with only getting input from the front line, but they will have a lot of information and steer you in the right direction. There are going to be people who've been there various different times. There's going to be people that have just been there 2-3 months. They will have good observations and things that they can bring back. There may be people that have been there 20-30 years, people hobbling around and being quite elderly, like episode 161 album cover of The Elderly Me, according to artificial intelligence. When you guys look at that picture, you're going to be like, that looks nothing like him. But go to 161 and you'll see, or 162, sorry about that. And you'll see that, well, anyway, but get the information from people both young or new to the organization and people that have been around a very long time. It can give you that historical perspective. If you are on the front line and don't feel like your staffing areas are where they need to be and you need to make your job more bearable, then you can look at the data. You can start pulling data reports. You can look at any number of things that may indicate that you need more staffing. So if you're looking at a number of patient safety events that have caused issues, then show these patient safety events and demonstrate they may be higher when staffing is lower. Take a look at the patient census. See what data is out there. What are the patient censuses typically, and where is the optimum staffing for this? And be prepared for some surges. There are going to be a number of other objective pieces of data you can scrape up and pull up and bring into the conversation that can lead these changes. So not only are you looking at the day-to-day jobs and getting input from the frontline individuals, but you're also looking at the outcomes, because of course in healthcare, we want to have optimal outcomes of people that are there at all the times. And if things aren't going the way it is intended, then there needs to be some changes. So look at the data and go for that. And if those two things don't work for you, well, of course, it's time for you to start looking for another job. You must look for another job. This one is not for you. They are abusing, taking advantage of you too much. Fire starters, hey, your worth is too high. Right now is the time to be looking for a new job because there are so many openings available. And in order to bring people in, you may even make more money. You may work less hours. You can negotiate something even better for yourself, even if you've been at a place for 10, 15, 20 years down the line. And if it's not serving your needs, that's when you make a change. All too often, people are too afraid to make these changes, and it doesn't work out in their advantage. So the final tip is look for another job. And if you are having difficulty, whether it's trying to free yourself from the golden handcuffs, trying to get out into another location, give me a call. This is what I'm here for. I am here to help people get the career, the jobs that they love, the career that they deserve, and overall just have a better life. So don't hesitate to give me a shout out. Reach out to me on social media at Dr. Jarrett. And hey, use data, talk with the front line, and get another job. And if you're doing all those things, hey, I know I will see you next time.
No matter how disheartening the moment of accusation sounds, how deep the pain of immobilization stabs, or how bleak your future looks, no one can take away your license to live. Keep Dr. Jarrett's expertise handy and unlock your future. Go to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or another podcast player and subscribe right now to Licensed to Live. See you next time.